This episode of Get Creative is brought to you by my new service, EnzoGoGo.com. Find the right person for the right job. All right, on with the show. Hello, and welcome to the Get Creative podcast, the podcast for creatives by creatives. I'm Evan Schmidt, and my guest today is Frank Sands. He's a scientist and an inventor. Hey Frank, thanks for coming on the show today. So tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks, Evan. Yeah, Frank Sands here. I am a scientist. I have a degree in chemistry, much more education in physics, high energy physics. I started young, left high school a little bit early, started college, worked in exploratory research, put myself through college. And over the years, I've become an entrepreneur, had several businesses, and now I'm the owner of Sands Science and Energy Specialists. And as such, we find solutions to problems that people don't even know exist yet. They haven't recognized it, or sometimes they do and they don't know how to resolve it. So we get involved and fix it for them. Creative solutions.
Okay, so with your background, what's something really important that you've learned?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's a couple of things to be learned here on failures. Most people get so close, but they fail in the last strokes. Like, imagine I take you into a dark room and there's a huge swimming pool in there, and I tell you you have to get to the other side. And you start to go, but at some point there's some self-preservation. It says, oh, I have to swim back to where I started or I'm going to drown. I'm never going to make it. And then we mark the position that you made and we turn the lights on. And what you found is most entrepreneurs make it 70 to 99% of the way across the pool. But for whatever reason, they don't complete. And really, this is so prevalent. People make it so far, but don't quite get to the end. Now, what they didn't realize is there was a rope right alongside of them the whole time that they could have felt how far along they were. There were people in the room that if they would have said, I need help, could have helped them. If somebody would have said, put the lights on, we can put the lights on. But you see, they just kind of kept their head down. They didn't bring in any other experts. And when they didn't make it, they lost their life savings. They lost all the time and effort into it. So the first thing you have to learn about being an entrepreneur is knowing when to give up and when to push a little bit harder. And that's really important because you don't want to lose your house and bang your head against a brick wall that's not moving. But you also you should not be afraid to ask for help with expertise when you're very far along. And I think a lot of people just don't ask the right people for their expertise and their input as they go along. And as a manager, I know this. I can't possibly be an expert in every single field. However, I'm smart enough to know when I need some help and I get an expert and we go the extra mile. So that's really important in being an entrepreneur is bringing in the expertise, having a support system to be able to get you across the finish line. And the other thing about the success is you have to think bigger. If you set a goal to just be, let's suppose we're going to be real estate developers for the moment. Not that I'm suggesting that people do that, but there's a skyscraper and I say, Evan, would you like to buy that skyscraper? And you're like, yeah, sure, Frank, but I can't possibly do that. I have no idea how to run it. I have no idea, how to do that. And I don't have the resources. I don't have the money to do that. But I ask you, can you buy a car? Can you negotiate a deal and buy a car? And you would say, yeah, of course I can. Well, you see, buying a car and getting used to negotiating, figuring out value, is an important skill to buying a skyscraper. But there's some steps in between. So after you buy a car, maybe you need to buy a house. After you buy a house, figure out what the operation of that is. Maybe you want to buy a duplex. And now you're getting rent from the person next door. And maybe you want to buy a 4-unit apartment and you're getting rent from 4 people and maybe 20 people as you're growing and growing and growing. And one day you have 5 apartment complexes that are very large, and you're managing them well. You've gained all this expertise as you go, and you say, hey, there's a little skyscraper there. It's only a 12-story, but I think I can do that, and you now have the skills. You now have built your finances. You've built your expertise. You've built your staff. Even if the staff is a staff of one, you've built that. You know where to get cleaning services. You know where to get renovations. You've sort of built this as you went, and now you buy your first skyscraper. Now you're looking at bigger skyscrapers, and now the sky is the limit. So here you went from having no idea how to buy a skyscraper, that 10 to 15 years goes by, and that's not very long. We're not going to get instant gratification here. You're not going to buy that skyscraper in 6 months or a year or 5 years. But when you're talking 10, 15, or 20 years, it's doable. Anything is doable, but you need to take the steps to get to the end. And the other half of this, which I have to say because I've had to make this choice, is what is success, and is more and bigger better? And that answer is no. There is a point that you feel comfortable. Not everyone wants to have a company of 2,000 employees, because with 2,000 employees comes a lot of money, a lot of prestige, yes, but a lot of headaches. And we all, as individuals, need to ask ourselves, what do we really consider successful? How much do we want to work? How much money do we really need? And everybody thinks more. And that's not really the case. If I said, Evan, right now, here's $1 trillion, how would that buy you happiness? I mean, something that's such an obscene amount of money. And you would probably say, well, Frank, I really don't want to work. I'd like to take some vacations, hang out with some friends, get a house. Okay, you've just spent $500,000. You still have $1 trillion minus, $500,000. So you've not even touched that money. So my point is everybody thinks they want to be rich. Everybody thinks they want to be top executives and have all of this. But the fact of the matter is happiness is really not very far out of any of our reach. And once you acquire that happiness and the amount of money that makes you comfortable, the prestige, your family, your friends, whatever is important to you, you're there. That's your success. Success is not more. Success is not something different. It's something that can give you the time and resources to do what you really enjoy.
Great. So what's on your mind these days?
One of the things is renewable energy, the environment. Is there global warming? Isn't there global warming? But without getting into that, let's just say there's a lot that every individual can do. And it's about not using disposable items that pollute landfills and the oceans and our forests. I mean, that's like something so easy that every one of us can do. It doesn't require any money. It can actually save you money. We're always looking for the government or someone else to find the answers, and we have a lot of these answers within our grasp. And very tiny things can make a huge difference. It's interesting that as much solar, as much wind, as much nuclear, as much hydro, non-fossil fuel energy that we have today, we need more. The problem is not really in the energy production. It's in the energy consumption. It's us as consumers, how much energy we're all using and how much resources. And I think that's always left out of the equation. Like we have this bucket of energy that we're pouring more and more into as we get gas from the ground and petroleum and coal and everything else, and we're trying to fill this bucket. But this bucket has a hole in the bottom. And it's not a little hole. It's a huge, huge hole. So we need to be pouring more coal, more petroleum, more natural gas, more wind power, more solar, more hydroelectric, more nuclear. We have to keep dumping more and more into this bucket because we have a hole that's nearly the size of the bottom of the bucket. So if you were a little kid and you had a hole in your bucket, would you keep running to the ocean and trying to keep filling that bucket to keep water in it? Or would you say, I'm going to put my finger over that hole and we're going to fix the problem with why all this energy is spilling out and putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and particulates and all these things. So the strategy that we have not embraced worldwide is conservation. And it starts with each and every one of us. The answer is not an electric car. The answer is not solar. The answer is not more natural gas. The answer is we need to use less. We are so wasteful. We are so wasteful as a society. If we could only see ourselves, it would be very, very clear that we have a huge hole in the bottom of the energy bucket. And the answer is closing that hole down by quite a bit. So we still have very comfortable lifestyles, but we're not as wasteful as we are today. And there's very tangible ways. Like I say, look how much food is wasted per day. It's like a third of the food supply of this country is wasted. The resources into farming, both plant and animal, is just huge. And then the transportation costs to get it to the consumer, only to have it spoil on the shelves or in your refrigerator or not consumed and then thrown into the trash to be landfilled, that ultimately turns to more carbon dioxide and other bad things. There's just not a good strategy here that people are following. They're looking in all the wrong places. They're looking for more. And as we talked, about being an entrepreneur, more is not always the answer. It's finding a comfortable mix.
Well, Frank, thanks for coming on the show today, sharing your ideas, and getting creative with me.
Okay, Evan, thank you. I enjoyed it, and have a good day. Thanks, Evan.
And if you want to learn more about Frank and what he does, just go to sandscience.com. That's SANSSCIENCE.com. That's it for another episode of Get Creative. You can find more information about my guest in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe so that you get the next episode in your sleep. And please give the show a review. For more information about me, go to evanschmidt.com, follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn, and watch my vlog on YouTube where I share lessons that I've learned. Thank you for listening. Now go get creative.